Hello there, you wonderful people. It's been a bit since I've posted something on YouTube, but I can indeed confirm that I still exist. I've been having trouble finding inspiration for content on my channel, but I thought I could make something for a 15 subscriber special. Originally, I was going to make another speed paint. But then it hit me. I've posted a lot of art stuff, so I figured I might shake things up. I'm a huge Rayman fan, so I figured I could do something related to the franchise. And then I heard about an obscure title in the series. Not Rayman Golf. Not Rayman Bowling or Rayman Kart, oh no. We're talking about the GBA edition of a complete mess. Rayman. Hoodlums Revenge. Let's get this over with. And before we get into this dumpster fire of a game, I just want to thank all of you for helping me reach 15 subscribers. I know it's a small milestone, but it really means a lot to me. Let's start this review on a semi-positive note and discuss the game's graphics and presentation. While this is probably one of the game's best components, it's also not the greatest thing ever. The character models for Rayman, Glowbox, and the rest of the characters are very faithful to their Rayman 3 ones, which is something I really like. But then you have the rest of the level design, which looks like something I might have made in RPG Maker, in first grade. The color palette is very bright and oversaturated. And it doesn't really fit the characters' models or the general vibe of Rayman 3, which this game is a direct sequel to. The levels themselves are dull, uninspired, and even difficult to look at sometimes. And on the topic of the levels, they are not accurate to the original Rayman 3s. For example, this is the land of the livid dead in Hoodlum Havoc. And here is the same place in Hoodlums Revenge. Spot the difference, folks. And while we're talking about the game's general design, let's talk about the character portraits used in the game's dialogue. You have Rayman, who uses his art and model from Rayman 3, but then you have the rest of the cast. Let's take Murphy as an example. His in-game model uses his Rayman 3 look, but his text box uses his Rayman 2 art. I also want to point out some more inconsistencies, primarily with the Teensies and Glowbox. When you break a cage and save a Teensy in this game, their text box will not resemble their model's appearance. They all look like the Grand Minimus with their models. But their portraits look like the Teensies from various tribes in Rayman 3's promo art. Let's move on to Glowbox's portrait. When he is his usual self, his portrait uses his Rayman 2 look. But when a certain circumstance arises, we'll get to that later in the story segment of the review, he uses his Rayman 3 art with a slight eye edit. Personally, I think this was a sign that this game was going to be a train wreck. Now before we get to what is easily the worst aspect of this game, I'd also like to address the music that plays in the already awful levels. It's fine for a little bit, and some of the tracks are even kind of pleasant to listen to. The problem is that the levels are extremely long and tedious, which means you're gonna be hearing the same 2 or 3 minute track play around 6 to 10 times before you get through the level you're in. Imagine this. But for an entire 10 to 30 minutes. Hard pass. Controls are also pretty bad. They're clunky, and they feel like a ballerina gliding on an ice rink while also wearing a suit of Fire Emblem armor. I played this on a Raspberry Pi emulator, so it probably wasn't as bad as it would be on a computer emulator, but the controls still suck. Combine them with the awkward camera angle and you have a game that's a pain to play. And now we're at the reason why I'm making this review in the first place, the atrocious plot. I was able to get past the weird aesthetic, the crappy controls, and the mazes that the game calls levels, but the story is the last straw. It starts off alright in the intro. with Rayman and Glowbox relaxing in Clearleaf Forest after the ending of Rayman 3, but there is a fairly big problem. The intro doesn't establish what's going on or who's who to anyone new to the series. It just boils down to, okay, we're sleeping. Oh no, weird dream about Andy. Oh no, weird noise. Oh no, bestie's gone. It does a poor job at exposition for both the previous game and the current situation. And another complaint that I have is actually a factor of a pretty big plot hole in this game. The game also states later on that Andre died at the end of Rayman 3, but he didn't. Reflux died, and Andre was turned back into a red lump. On top of that, Andre's apparently dead ghost is able to possess Glowbox's body and set up a scheme to turn him into a clone of Reflux. It isn't even the real Reflux. It's just a clone of his body that Andre uses to fight Rayman in the game's finale. And on the topic of the clone, the Hoodlums are able to create it with, you probably didn't guess it, plum juice. Normally stuff like that would be okay with a valid explanation, but plum juice doesn't have any magical properties or abilities apart from making Glowbox act like a drunken buffoon when he drinks it. Because allergies. So now Rayman is setting off on a journey to save his froggy friend and figure out what's going on and why Hoodlums have started appearing. He ventures through a few levels before encountering the Infernal Machine, where he is informed by Murphy that the Hoodlums are attempting to create a clone of Reflux using the machine. Rayman destroys it. Murphy repeats the exact same thing that he said at the start of the level, and it's over. The next series of levels focus on Glowbox and his escape from the dungeon of Murk. And right out the gate, the plot begins to pick up. But something's a little off with the Froggy Boy. Not only is he craving plum juice, he also appears to have a brief shift in personality and his eyes turn bloodshot. Anyone who has played Rayman 3 or paid attention to its storyline will pick up on the twist. Or maybe they won't. The possession plot pretty much came out of nowhere. Either way, he busts out with the help of some teensies and reunites with Rayman after the latter gets through some pretty poorly designed levels in order to save him. They reunite at Begoniax's Bayou, fight her for no apparent reason, and then ditch the swamp. Afterwards, they go through a few more levels in the bog before arriving at the land of the living dead. Because reasons. The possession plot point rears its Andre-shaped head once again, with Glowbox, aka Andre, briefly insulting the limbless lad. Rayman is offended, but Glowbox snaps out of it and seems confused about what is happening. Rayman brushes it off and explains the Hoodlums' plot to revive Reflux. While Andre comments about it being delightfully evil out loud in front of his arch-nemesis. Rayman takes notice of this once again, asking if Glowbox hit his head. And the duo continue through the lava-laden land before encountering the fire monster, aka the dollar store Naran Recolor. Rayman murders it in 2 hits and Andre exposes his evil plan. Running away to prepare to become his trashy boyfriend via the power of alcohol. Rayman tries to get his friend back by running through some levels that, as usual, suck. Before reaching the heart of the world and eventually Reflux's lair. Reflux doesn't have a lair and the heart of the world isn't a place. But moving on from that, Rayman gets rid of Andre, who used Glowbox's body as a clone of Reflux that Andre is controlling, and the game ends. Glowbox wakes up his normal self, Andre's spirit is exorcised or something. And they all live happily ever after, until the Rabbids. So to conclude, this game sucked. It might have had some good in it, like the character models and semi-okay graphics, but overall it is indeed a dumpster fire. It's basically Rayman 3 but with an even crazier plot and none of the charm, so you should avoid playing this offensive husk of a game unless you can get it for free.